Australia's often difficult relationship with our biggest trading partner is once again in the spotlight this morning, with Beijing making good on a threat to slap punitive tariffs on imports of Australian barley. The 80% import tax will stay in place for 5 years and is expected to wipe out Australian sales into the lucrative Chinese market. They are worth hundreds of millions of dollars each year. Beijing says the product has been unfairly subsidised, a claim Australia disputes.
The latest salvo in the trade battle came as China, under pressure from more than 100 nations, agreed to an Australian-backed proposal for an international probe into the origins of COVID-19. But the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, told an international health meeting that investigations could only take place when the pandemic, which began in his country, had ended. Let's get more on these developments from our correspondent in Beijing, Bill Birtles. Good morning, Bill. Well, China has agreed to an independent investigation into the origin of the virus. What do you make of it?
Well, Lisa, let's look at the details a little bit. What China has agreed to support is a WHO-led investigation, what it calls a comprehensive review, but only once the pandemic is under control. So when would that actually take place? Beijing did not define that. President Xi Jinping also made it clear that it should be objective and fair, which is code for a non-political review that does not take aim at China. So I think the way the government here in Beijing would interpret this investigation, in whatever form it eventually takes, it perhaps is a bit different to this original idea of having some sort of truly independent body external to the pressures of governments, which was proposed in the first place. But it's still pretty significant, I suppose, that the Chinese government realised there was a groundswell of diplomatic support around the world for some sort of investigation. The big question, of course, is when this actually does happen, how much influence would the Chinese government bring to bear on the WHO and the investigators who eventually do carry out this review?
And Bill, can I ask you about barley, because farmers here will be waking to the news about this 80% tariff. What's the feeling in China?
Well, we realised this was very likely to be confirmed because the government wouldn't have foreshadowed it so much over the past week and a half if they pretty much hadn't already made up their minds. We're just not getting any answers up here, Lisa. We tried to ask the Commerce Minister directly yesterday at an event about this, and he dodged the question. So there isn't a lot of direct talk from Chinese officials. We've seen Trade Minister Simon Birmingham try to line up a call to actually discuss these issues with his counterpart and getting rebuffed. As for what the average person on the street here feels about it, pretty hard to say there's much reporting on it at all. I don't think this is seen in Beijing as a major priority. Very much the focus here for all China's trade disputes remains on the United States. But the general feeling from state media coverage is that this is an investigation that's been going for the best part of 2 years. China's government claims that the timing is not suspicious, that Australia shouldn't read too much into it. On the other hand, Lisa, every now and then in the state media, they throw out tidbits to suggest that Beijing is very unhappy with the Australian attitude to China. And so even though they say that's not a factor, you do see strong hints that it may be a factor.
Bill Birtles, great to have you on the ground there in China. Thank you.